Did you know there were concentration camps in Italy? I didn't until I started the research for this book, but we are at one. It is in Fossoli, which is a small town outside another small town called Carpi, which is near the railway station on the way to Modena. Now, let me just give you some background about location. Modena is a town you may know. Pavarotti is from there. It's a beautiful Italian city. And the fields around Modena is where balsamic vinegar is grown. So if you know what that is, you probably have it on your table. I know I do. But there in the middle of this incredibly beautiful place is a concentration camp. And this is called Fossoli Camp. And this is what remains of it. Obviously, it doesn't exist anymore. But it was used for many reasons during, from its inception. But the one pertinent for us is that it was used to intern Jews during World War II, from Milan, Turin, Rome, points all over Italy. It was considered a transit camp. And the prisoners were kept here until they were taken in railway cars, as you may know, from just cattle cars, basically, to points north like Auschwitz. Primo Levi was kept here, a very famous Italian poet and writer and chemist. And you may remember that name from the book too. But here's Fossoli.
I was so moved to write this book because I found out so many little things that happened right in Rome. And there were stories that were terrifying, but there were also stories that were inspiring. And I wanted to tell those stories because I feel, honestly, that there hasn't been much about the Holocaust in Italy. You know, you've seen a lot of World War II, there's a lot of World War II books, but not much about it in Italy. And it's especially important because fascism was frankly born in Italy. Mussolini's party was the first fascist party ever. And we've talked previously about why people joined it. But what's important for our purposes, why does this matter? Why is fascism and the Holocaust in Italy different from Nazism in Germany and throughout Europe? And the answer is because when fascism was formed early on, and Mussolini ascended to power very early in the 1920s, people joined his party, as we said before, because it was ultranational, and also because it was about big business and simplifying the tax code and promoting all sorts of good things for Italy, and also modernizing Italy in many ways. But what was interesting about it was not anti-Semitic at all. There was no trace of anti-Semitism. Italian Jews, which were a minority in Italy, and there were a lot centered in Rome in the Jewish ghetto, joined the party at the same proportion as their Gentile citizens. So it wasn't until, and I'm going to keep this short, but it wasn't until Mussolini joined forces with Hitler and then started to propagate a lot of anti-Semitic laws, and then Jews were persecuted and the Italian Holocaust began. So you saw the previous film, which was me at one. There were about 40 concentration camps in Italy. And I visited the one there, which is at Fossoli. It's outside the town of Carpi near Modena. I said Modena because my Italian, I didn't know, but now I know. You may know Modena because besides the fact that it's Pavarotti's birthplace, a lot of balsamic comes from there. And you can't really get a sense, but I want to show you some pictures that I took there. Because this is what the camp at Fossoli, the camp at Fossoli was the largest camp. And there were points when there were 5,000 Jews interned there, Italian Jews and also foreign Jews. This is what it looked like then. And what's interesting about it is you see the barracks, but you also see that it's in the middle of, it looks like the middle of nowhere. Actually, it's the most beautiful region. It's all stuff to make balsamic and grapevines and vineyards and all that stuff. And there's the little places that process balsamic or balsamico. And it's in the middle of this beautiful expanse. So to get there, you take a train, and I took the train. I mentioned Primo Levi in the video. He's a very famous Italian chemist, author, who actually was also Jewish, was arrested for no reason and taken to Fossoli camp, as are the character. Well, I'm not going to give anything away about my book. But the bottom line is they're taken to that camp, and that camp was often used as a way station, like they stayed there maybe 1 or 2 days before they're shipped to other concentration camps, like Primo Levi was sent to Auschwitz. But when you visit it today, it's still set in this very beautiful area. And you can't even believe that you're going there. You get off the train in Carpi, and you walk a little, and you finally get a cab, especially if you're like a middle-aged broad, like someone you know. And I was there with my best friend and assistant, Laura Leonard. And so we were like, this is a long walk, let's get a cab. Why this matters is that we take a cab through all these beautiful vineyards, and they're actually ruins, the ruins of the camp. It's not really set up for like tourists. They'll let you go in. There's only one day I think you can go in. And the cab driver, and that's why I tell you about the cab, when we got out of the cab, I couldn't believe like it was just like a bunch of bricks in the middle of these beautiful vineyards. And I thought, you know, I mean, is it a museum? What am I going to see? And I said, you know, is this the camp? And he said, yes, it is a black mark on Italy's history. And it was that sad, and I was like, this is interesting. And so when you see it, you know, it is barely set up for visitors. It's just in ruins. This is pictures I took. Like you see, there's a bunch of barracks. They're all brick. They're in states of disrepair. I think if you stood near them, they might fall on you. Clear to the sky. There's one or two signs that are plastic. They do have some educational stuff, but it basically looks like a bunch of ruins. It's hard to tell what it was, but I did the research, and I described it in Eternal, so you get a really clear sense of what it was and what it looked like. But here you can just like the barracks, and there were about, I think, 20 of them, but I don't remember right now, but you'll see this in the book. Stand now as these shells. And somehow it's more poignant because it's not in a state where it's ready for education and there's not docents going around. It's really heartbreaking because you see how desolate and how sort of dislocated it is. And you can't imagine being scooped up from Rome and put on a train to go north, and it's about 3 hours. And then you're taken to this camp. You don't even know why. You don't know what's going on. And why it's important that there were the Jewish Italians who became fascists was that their party actually wanted to join forces with the Nazis, completely betrayed them. They were officials in the fascist party. And then on a dime, the fascist party decided we're going to be anti-Semitic, and now we are going to persecute you. And that you'll see more clearly the picture of what happens in Eternal. But as I say, it's the backdrop to, I think, a really dramatic, really important story. And if you've read me before, and thank you for that, you know that a lot of my books, even though there are moments in them about family and stuff like that and love, they're really a lot about justice. And it's very interesting to look at justice. You know, we say, why are we talking about this now? Why does the Holocaust even matter? Why does it bug me that people don't, we haven't been taught enough about the Italian Holocaust? And the answer is that great quote by Santayana, if you don't know history, you are condemned to repeat it. And the answer to hate, and this is sort of what Eternal's message is, and I think it's a fairly uplifting book. It's love is the answer to hate. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Because as Primo Levi said, in a great quote of his, he said, as soon as you start to think somebody is better than somebody else, and you turn them into the other, in the end, there's a camp. And he can say that because he was not only a genius, but he lived that life. And so I really wanted to explore what happens to justice during wartime and what happens to law when law itself perpetrates injustice and perpetrates mass murder. What about that? So these are the kind of things that are behind the book. That's the purpose of these videos. And that's the really serious subject I wanted to bring up tonight.